Today's news.
3 prison escapees caught.
That leaves 2 inmates on the run.
Travel headache.
We just decided to roll with it.
Florida boat blast.
When they went to start their boat up, it just exploded.
Good morning, I'm Steve Kathan. With the CBS World News Roundup, authorities in Louisiana have caught 3 inmates who broke out of a New Orleans prison along with 7 others a week and a half ago. Now just 2 remain at large. CBS's Katie White.
Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald were arrested 400 miles away in Texas after a high-speed chase. 26-year-old Lenton Van Buren was picked up in Baton Rouge. Orleans Parish District Attorney Jason Williams says this escape could have been prevented after a few other inmates staged an unsuccessful jailbreak 2 weeks prior.
If the sheriff had rang the alarm about the vulnerabilities that existed, then maybe resources could have been brought to bear from the state.
In Arkansas, the hunt is on for a former police chief who's serving a 30-year prison term for murder and rape. Grant Hardin escaped from a prison where he's been held since 2017. Grand Champion with the Arkansas Department of Corrections says Hardin was able to dress up to look like an officer and walked to freedom.
We do feel very confident that he is fairly close to prison here at Calico Rock. We've had a lot of tips and leads that have forced us to believe that.
The Trump administration is moving to cancel the government's remaining federal contracts with Harvard University, worth an estimated $100 million. The administration has already canceled more than $2.6 billion in federal research grants to Harvard. National Public Radio and stations have filed a lawsuit arguing a Trump executive order to end its federal funding is illegal. Well, the trip home from the 3-day holiday weekend was a little slow for some travelers as the weather made things rough for drivers and flyers. CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
Severe weather dampened some travel plans as millions were making their way back home.
It was slightly delayed, 30-40 minutes.
In the Dallas area, storms on Monday led to more than 600 flight delays and over 100 cancellations, while Houston's airport saw more than half of its flights delayed. And thunderstorms continued in Denver, delaying more than 500 flights there, some more than 3 hours late.
Now to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where CBS's Manuel Bojorquez has details of a boat explosion that sent 11 people to the hospital.
A Memorial Day celebration turned terrifying after nearly a dozen passengers, including 2 children, were thrown into the water after a boat explosion at a Fort Lauderdale yacht club. Brett Triano was nearby and used his dinghy to help a man struggling in the water.
He was saying, "Save me. Please don't let me die."
Rescue teams got the call just before 6 p.m. The boat was anchored at a popular sandbar that brings in crowds during the holiday weekends. It was unclear what may have caused the explosion. Antonio Rivera said he was on the boat with his wife and 2 sons when he was burned in the blast.
We tried to fuel up the boat, and must have been a gas leak, and the spark went off and explosion. They'll be okay. There's nothing permanent. Okay. You know, but they did get burned, 30-degree burns.
This morning, 8 adults are listed in good condition, 2 children in fair condition. Russia today accused Ukraine of increasing air attacks to try to disrupt peace talks and said that its own massive assaults on Ukraine were a response to drone attacks on Russia. And a Ukrainian official said today Russian forces have taken over 4 border villages in an area in northeastern Ukraine. A new aid group backed by the U.S. and Israel is now operating in Gaza. American contractors are being used for security. Here's CBS's Deborah Patten.
Under pressure from its allies, including the U.S., Israel began allowing in a trickle of humanitarian aid last week. The newly set up U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation also says it began distributing food yesterday. This mother and child are scavenging for food. Even when they bring aid, nothing reaches us, said Islam Abu Taima. We're like stray dogs collecting food from trash. If we don't, we starve.
On social media, President Trump says he is pardoning a Virginia sheriff who was sentenced to 10 years in prison in a federal bribery case 2 months ago. Trump said Scott Jenkins was a, quote, victim of an overzealous Biden Department of Justice. 5 minutes after the hour.
Well, that's today's news. It's 52 degrees in Livermore, California. I didn't hear any good news, did you? I didn't think so. I guess it's all about have perspective.